Good morning. We're continuing our study on the subject of the rapture being revealed in the Tanak, or the Old Testament. And I left off in our last session talking about the fact is that this is a description of a resurrection, Isaiah chapter 26, verses 19 down through 21. This is the prophet Isaiah, Yahuah is his name in Hebrew, speaking here, and he talks about a particular time frame when he, talking about himself, with his dead body shall arise with the dead man. And he's talking about the fact is, like I said, a resurrection or here. And we know that the rapture is a resurrection event. It's when Yahuah, our Creator, will call together, gather together in one. In fact, this is mentioned in the book of Ephesians. Well, in fact, why don't I just read this verse in Ephesians before I go back here in Isaiah. In Ephesians chapter 1, verse 10, the Apostle Paul making it here a direct reference to the rapture as well. It's talking about a gathering together. But it says that at the dispensation of the fullness of times, in other words, there's a particular time frame, a dispensation that Yahuah has chosen. In other words, it's a set time frame that he has determined. After the rapture takes place, and of course the rapture is for the fact to resurrect those that have died in Messiah, since the church began in the book of Acts chapter 2, and those that are alive today shall be called up together. So it's an event to gather together the bride of the Mashiach, of the Messiah, and at that point the church age will end. Now people will still be saved during the tribulation, or Daniel's 70th week, but the fact is they're not part of the church. In fact, the wedding of the Messiah will take place before the return of the Mashiach, of the Messiah. If you read through Revelation chapter 19, you come away with the conclusion there that there's a wedding. The bride has made herself ready, talking about the saints, and then we are going to be coming back with him at the time of the second coming of the Mashiach. And so those that are saved during the tribulation or Jacob's trouble, these will not be part of the church. They can receive salvation. It's going to be a very difficult time for them, as I mentioned, but they're not the same group of people. But let me finish reading here in verse 10 of chapter 1 of Ephesians. Paul says that in the dispensation of the fullness of time, he might gather together. Notice this, a gathering together. What is the rapture? It's a gathering together. In one, all things in Messiah, both which are in heaven and which are on earth, even in him. Now see, this is a confirmation of what Paul made reference to in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 51, where he said that we shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. He talked about the dead in Messiah rising first, and then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together. Notice the word together. It's a gathering together of the dead and those that are alive in Messiah at one time. So this is another reference right here in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 10, that is talking about Yahuah has set forth a particular time frame where he's going to bring together all the saints that have died in Messiah since the day of Pentecost or Shavuot. That's when the church actually began. Jew and Gentile believers, the Spirit or the Ruach was poured out upon the believing believers that had put faith in the Messiah, whether they were Jews or Gentiles. And of course, we know that the church started all as Jews or Yahudim. The 120 that were saved, that the Spirit was poured out upon, who spoke in tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance in Acts chapter 2. They were all Jews. So the church began with the Jewish people. But it also expanded unto the Gentiles, which was Yahuah's purpose, was to save all those that would put their faith and trust in the Messiah. So there is a time frame where he's going to gather together. Notice it says in Messiah. So these are people who have been saved, or what we would call part of the church. And so these are the ones that will be gathered together at this time frame. So, and it also precedes this time frame where Yahuah is coming out in verse 21 of Isaiah 26. He said he's coming out of his place, and he's coming out of his place for a reason, to punish the earth for their sins and for their iniquity. In other words, their rejection of the Messiah, he's coming to punish the earth. Just like there was a time frame that Yahuah destroyed the earth in the book of Genesis because mankind had become so corrupt, and that only Noah and his family were saved during that time frame. And we also notice the pattern that Enoch, who I believe is a type of the church, was raptured or caught up before the flood came, which is a type and shadow, I believe, of the church age, of the church believers. Noah, being a type of the Jewish people, they were preserved during this time frame. And they had to be, because Yahuah was going to use them to replenish and repopulate the earth. So he had to leave. He couldn't rapture them as well, because if he had, there would have been no humans left to repopulate the earth. So I can hope you can see the tie-in here. We're going to continue this on our next session. Thank you for today for joining me. Again, please share my videos with others. And for those that I thank you that's left comments on my comment section and I appreciate that. Sometimes I don't reply to all of them, but sometimes I just oversee it. I don't see that you have replied. It's not an intentional overlooking your comments, but thank you for those that have. I appreciate that, and we'll join together on our next broadcast. Shalom.